I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and I coach people and organizations to be more effective. And welcome to another episode of Career Angles. I stumbled into a question that someone who reached out to connect with me posed. Now, he's Australian and wrote an article called "Would You Hire Someone Who Is Not Good for Team Culture?" To me, this is a trap question. And I'll just simply say, in the writing that he did, he starts off by quoting a statistic from LinkedIn, which I think is a wonderful statistic that I'm just going to shred. Australian hiring managers are struggling to find staff that fit in, with 78% admitting they've hired someone who isn't good for team culture. This survey of 460 hiring managers showed the top issues with new staff were an inability to work collaboratively and a lack of team spirit and adaptability. And that comes from LinkedIn Daily Rundown. Now, as of the writing here, Australia's unemployment rate is 5.5%, and in some sectors like IT, finance, telecom, and others, it's even lower. So let's go back to the question. Would you hire someone who isn't good for team culture? Now, this always brings me back to the notion that you as a manager are incapable of hiring for fit. Why? Really very simple. The job hunter is on good behavior, and so are you. No one ever tells job hunters all the problems in their organization. You're busy evaluating and assessing for their capabilities and trying to project attributes onto them based upon how they present themselves. It's why the statistics are so striking that 78% admit to having made a mistake. Not that the person is at problem, but the language here says that the hiring manager makes the mistake, because they are the ones who hire people who are not good for the team culture. So I want to encourage you to rethink interviewing and to think of interviewing from the standpoint of you are incapable of assessing for fit, and the proof is in the numbers. With that, what you can do is assess for skills and then describe the culture for them so that they have an idea of what they're stepping into, who the major players are, who the high performers are. And from there, number two here in terms of problems is inability to work collaboratively and lack of team spirit and adaptability. Lack of team spirit, hey, that's a management issue. You've hired people who need motivation. Motivation as opposed to inspiration. Motivation is you have to make them do something, versus inspiration being part of the selection process where you're able to excite people, where they are excitable individuals, where they want to do well, and you're pressing on their individual buttons and championing them so they want to play bigger than they already are. Again, that's on you as a manager. Inability to work collaboratively? How do you have it set up for people to work collaboratively? How are you onboarding people and making it clear to your existing staff the importance of integrating the new talent? Again, a management problem, not a staff problem. So I look at numbers like this and pause for a second and say, okay, there's also some cultural stuff that shows up. In the case of Australia, 28% of Australians are born outside of the country. From there, let's look at other nations like the US and now parts of Europe, and many people in the population were born elsewhere. How are you going to integrate them into your culture? What are you going to do to have the existing people and the new people collaborate with one another? And do you have reasonable expectations of that? Now, in sales, it's pretty common that people compete. So the notion of collaboration can be, shall we say, complicated. But in many other fields, it's important that the team members are rewarded for taking the time to integrate new staff so that they become high performers as well. What are you as a leader doing to make this happen? How are you inspiring your people, rewarding people, giving them attaboys and attagirls for doing this kind of stuff. So often, you're sitting back in your office, you're sitting back at your desk, passing judgment on people instead of doing the biggest thing that managers, and I have to say leaders, need to do, which is inspiring staff. Inspiring the people who are in your charge to do great things. When you avoid that, when you neglect that, you wind up in situations where you think you're hiring for